My name is Jack, and right now I'm 26 years old. This happened when I was 15. My mom was out of town at the time, and my dad had let me and a couple of friends to come over and watch the World Cup start in 2010. It had been a while since we watched football at all, so we were all very excited. We got some pizza and some snacks and started to watch. Around halftime, we heard some scratching at the window. We all shook it off as the wind, since we lived in a gated community and it was a very safe neighborhood. After the game, we started to watch a movie, and that was when things started to get out of control. We heard the sound again, only this time it was louder. My friend, let's call her Maya, got a bit freaked out and grabbed a baseball bat. My other friends, let's call them James, Alan, and Steve, thought she was losing it, but at that point I was getting a bit suspicious too. So I turned on the security cameras on a smaller TV. Everything seemed okay, until we heard the noise again. We looked at the camera, but nothing was there. So we called my dad, and he looked out the window. There was nothing there, so he said to calm down and watch the movie peacefully. We forgot about it for a while, until about 40 minutes later, when we went upstairs to grab more snacks. Our house was pretty big, and I felt the need to check every room, but I convinced myself that it was okay. We went downstairs again to resume the movie, and I decided to look at the security camera, and I nearly screamed. There was a man in a tattered LA Dodgers shirt and sweatpants standing with a butcher knife in his hand at the living room window. He had a deranged look on his face, and his long, dirty, matted black hair made the situation even scarier. I motioned to my friends, and James almost screamed, but covered his mouth to prevent that. And before we could do anything, he went to the door and pounded on it, and said in a deep voice, "Open up, open up." Maya and I both grabbed our baseball bats again, but we were both shaking like crazy. I was pissed off and scared. We all slowly went upstairs to check to see if the doors were all locked. Who the hell was this guy, and what the hell did he want? My dad at that point had heard the noise and had to come down from upstairs, and he took one look at the guy and nearly fainted. He yelled at him to leave or he will call the cops. I had never seen my dad so angry. James, who was the youngest, was reasonably terrified, so he was hiding behind the couch. And Alan was just pale and frozen, while Steve had his fist clenched and had a deathly scared look on his face. The guy had the creepiest grin you could ever see in your life. He seemed like he was on drugs. I really didn't know what to do until he yelled, "I am coming in." He started stabbing the door. That's when I finally snapped back and yelled at him to leave or I will kill him myself. I really don't know why I said that, and I wish I didn't, because he looked at me and ran towards the window and shattered it with his shoulder. My dad, meanwhile, was calling the cops and went to get spare knives from the kitchen, while Maya and I were the only ones armed at that point. The guy was already in our house, so I screamed. Both me and Maya charged at him. This was just us teens being reckless, but we managed to drop him. The man got up and held the knife and said, "Don't think about it." I didn't know what to do, but I was pissed, so I hit his hand with the bat as hard as I could. I don't think I hurt him even a bit, but I managed to drop the knife out of his hands. That brought us some time, as he bent down to pick it up. Maya's hands were still shaking, so when she swung the bat, she missed. As the guy was about to pick the knife up again, my dad ran full speed out of the kitchen and rammed into him. With the hit, he dropped his knife again. The creepy guy was winded for a moment, as my dad pinned him as best as he could, but the guy somehow got out. By that time, both Maya and I had come to our senses and swung at the same time. My blow got his back, which I'm sure must have hurt a lot, and Maya, who was still shaking, somehow managed a solid blow to his crotch. The guy doubled back and cursed in pain, and this time my dad wrestled him to the floor with Steve's help and put him in a chokehold. But unfortunately, the guy kicked my dad's stomach, grabbed his knife, and threw it where my friends and I were standing. Most of us got out of the way, but Steve wasn't so lucky, as it grazed his leg. It wasn't serious, but it definitely hurt as he yelled out in pain. At this point, the guy was running at us again, but this time, he wasn't as lucky. He had only faced one or two of us at the time, and he escaped because of our pure shock to the situation. I got him first and punched him in the throat. Steve got there next and kicked him in the shin. And finally my dad and Alan wrestled him to the floor and finally subdued him. Steve was understandably pissed and kicking the guy while he was pinned down. The guy kept saying stop, but my dad covered his mouth and he couldn't talk. The cops arrived about 10 minutes later and arrested the guy. At that point, the commotions awoke the neighbors, so the whole neighborhood was outside at that point, wondering what the hell was going on. The guy tried to resist the police, and we can all guess how that ended up working out for him. He got tased, and they put him in the car and drove off. We later learned that the guy was a known criminal and was on the police's radar. He was probably a pedophile as well. As I said in the beginning of my story, I am 26, and I am still close with those friends. Most of us turned out fine, but Steve had to go to a therapist for a while. He had night terrors because of that knife throw, but he's okay now. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't turned on the security cameras, and I am so thankful I did, because I might not have been able to tell this story now.